guys, welcome back to the Dicebearers podcast. We had a bit of a hiatus, haven't we, Chris?
Yeah, definitely.
But we're back at it again. Today we're talking about the Far Harad. Chris, what do we feel about Far Harad?
I am very excited for this one. So, for those who don't know, this is an army that I absolutely love playing. I play it in tandem with my Serpent Horde quite a lot. As we'll see later, I actually won an event, HobbitCon, with a allied list with these guys in it. So, I think it's an awesome army, and I'm excited to jump into it today.
That list was my idea, so I won that proxy. Alright, let's get a quick overview of the model range. So a lot of older metal models, I think yep. All of it's metal.
This is one of those full metal armies if you're not proxying.
It's a heavy box, isn't it?
This army has I think it's 30 odd models that I have in a case, and it's heavier than an entire Lothlorien case.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
The unfortunate reality is a lot of it's also out of print. Camels? Yes. It's just camels and Camel King. You can get Mahud Warriors.
You can get the half trolls currently, and you can get the. Can you even get the kings anymore? I thought it was just half trolls and one other thing.
Thankfully,
there's going to be a made to order.
There's lots of 3D prints.
That is also
there's a lot of really good alternatives to the range.
Yes,
but it is a nice aesthetic for an army, I think.
Yes, for those of you who have the G-Dub ones, they I think are actually really, really well done medals. The camels in particular are just absolute standouts for me in terms of the actual models themselves. I think they're just really well designed and look so cool on a tabletop.
Well painted Camel King, especially with his little banner. That's not actually a banner.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, the little backpacks. Yeah.
Little backpack, yeah, and his little spikes. I think they are a very cool looking range and a very cool looking army.
Yeah, and the same with the half trolls and for me, it's the woven shields and that sort of stuff, and the woven armor that I think is really what sold me on the army initially. Yeah, as a really cool looking faction.
There are some really nice bits of well-made detail in the medals, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah, and using tusks and things like that as the weapons, and it's just really, it's a very unique army especially in the Lord of the Rings game. And yeah, it still feels right at home in the sort of lists you see it in.
Yeah. So, I don't think it looks out of place in the context of the game. So, into the list overview. What are our strengths, Chris?
So, there's a couple of big obvious ones. I think our most obvious strength is that our heroes are just ludicrously strong on the tabletop. You have such high impact damage coming out of any of your heroes when it comes to especially getting charges off or using a Mumak, and of course there's that hidden hero that's called a half troll. I think
you're 23-point Urukai Scout Captain. Yeah. We'll get into it later, but the half troll profile is absurd.
Yes.
Absurd.
And the way this army revolves around its heroes, because they give off the other big bonus of a fearless bubble around them whilst they're in combat. And that as well comboed with the high strength of only fight 3, which is a bit of a weakness, but strength 4 on the base troops and strength 5 on the half trolls means that you're going to be killing most things in fights that you're winning. And it's just about this weird dynamic of what sort of ratios do you go with the high strength, high fight, high dice models, and the supporting models like your Mahud Warriors with spears and that sort of stuff. In saying that though, what are our big weaknesses, Aleksa?
Well, look at an expensive troops. Your cheapest troop is 8 points, and it's only fight 3 and D5, which for 8 points, that's a tough sell. You do have 3+ shoot, but yours is a courage 2, so there's a lot of difference there. So then that goes into our second thing. Outside your heroes, your courage 2.
Yes.
All through your troops, courage 2. Your chieftains, courage 3. Thankfully, your kings are courage 5, and you've got that fearless bubble. But that's why it's so important to play around. There's something to be concerned with, because if your hero gets picked out or sniped out,
yes, or even just tied down, transfixed is the biggest issue with this army.
Yeah,
because your opponent doesn't need to then charge it, because like you said, tying down a hero to stop a stand fast is what usually works, but with this army that actually almost becomes a problem.
Yeah, you don't want
the hero to roll the courage test because they're only courage 3.
I think actually also to consider is low might. In this list pure, if we're not bringing in Serpent Horde as an ally, you only have 2 might heroes.
That is very
and they are quite expensive. I mean, they're very good heroes, but Mounted Camel King is 90 points. That is a big investment to be bringing. And then your shooting is only 12-inch. You have blowpipes, so you can bring infinity blowpipes, but you're only 12-inch. And finally,
you're paying 9 points per pop.
And you're paying 9 points for a 12-inch shooter. 3+, but still. And finally, potentially low fight. You do have fight 5 in the army, but it is on 23-point models, which means that unless you're going into something weird or crazy, a lot of your list is going to be stuck on that fight 3.
Yes.
Which, when you're expensive, rough.
Ironically, the photo we have in the background here is actually a good representation of what a balanced list might look like. Yeah. Low number of half trolls, a king probably on a camel, and then a a chieftain sitting off on the side, sometimes on foot, sometimes mounted.
Sure.
But the rest of your force is almost always going to be fight 3. And that's the real challenge about trying to work around this list and leveraging your strengths to be strengths and problems for your opponent and make your weaknesses as little of a weakness as possible.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a very interesting army to play, both pure and allied. I think allied, you can cover a lot of your bases thanks to Serpent Horde. I think they're an excellent... if you're playing Serpent Horde and you want to mix up your army, look at Far Harad.
Yes. I think Serpent Horde, in my opinion, is probably one of the most diverse armies in the game.
It just is.
Just because of, like, you have a really diverse army list pure, and you have, like, 6 different builds for the army. Then you have Corsairs, these guys, and Mortar, all in that little trifecta of green allies.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, this army just turned
the
up.
amount of options, if you're playing Serpent Horde, the amount of options you have for list building is, like, probably unmatched.
Yes.
Like, there are single lists that might have more, like...
Maybe Rohan, actually.
Yeah, maybe Rohan. I would say Isengard is a single list, excluding allies. Isengard has a lot of builds, especially with Legendary Legions involved as well.
Definitely true.
But when you take allies into account, I think Serpent Horde just is huge.
Yeah, and I think what these guys do for Serpent Horde and what Serpent Horde obviously do for them in return is just such an interesting dynamic. For anyone who has one army or the other, I would really implore you guys to actually give it a go, see what it's like playing with a mixed list, and see if you enjoy a pure list or a mix, because I found huge success, both casually and competitively, just in my enjoyment of it, all of it, sort of thing, playing that mixed style list. So, yeah.
With that, we're going to take a quick break and then get back with the profiles.
Alrighty, and welcome back. Let's dive straight in. Aleksa, take it away with the army bonus.
So, the army bonus is Mahud Warrior models that are within 6 of a friendly Mahud hero model that is engaged in combat automatically pass all courage tests they are required to make. So, remember how a courage turn, it's a big problem?
Yeah.
Well, if your hero's in combat, not even if you charge, you don't even need to roll stand fast. Your hero just gets charged. You're good? We're chilling.
Yeah, so here's a question, right? If I'm a really low might army and my opponent moves into me, is that now a problem or a benefit?
In this case, it might be a benefit if you're broken or if they're a tail line.
And so suddenly there's this really big problem, right? Where you have a king on a camel and your opponent doesn't want to let that king on a camel charge, because if it's me rolling, that's 15 kills on an impact hit alone. But then if they don't tie him up and they let people roll college tests, especially if it's a terror line, right? There's going to be a lot of fails left, right, and center. But if they do tie him up, oh, joke's on you, 8 half trolls charged, no issues.
Exactly.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't army bonus, and I think those are the best types of army bonuses or abilities in the games, ones that make your opponent make the hard choice, not you.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very strong army bonus, and obviously complements the list and makes up for its biggest weakness.
Exactly.
And I think that's very important, obviously, for the list. And with that, let's dive straight into our first profile. Chris, take it away with the Mahud King.
Yeah, so the Mahud King is a hero of valor, importantly. There is a hero of legend, but we'll get to talking about him in a little bit this time. But for the longest time, the Mahud King was the best you could get in the Far Harad, and for the humble price of 70 points, you'd get a Mahud, man, infantry hero, hero of valor. He is a move 6, fight 5, 3+ shoot value, strength of 5, which is incredible, defense of 5, 3 attacks as well for an unnamed king, 2 wounds, courage 5. He's a 2 might, 2 will, 1 fate. He starts with only armor and a club as his war gear, and he has heroic actions of strike and strength. Importantly, he does not have march. So if you're playing pure, you need to bring the Tribemaster, which is your captain equivalent, to bring march into the list. But he does have strike and 3 attacks. And on top of all of that, he also has some fantastic war gear options. So I'll start with the easier ones, which is a blowpipe with poison darts. Blowpipes are not considered a bow or crossbow, which means they don't count towards your bow limits. And if you own a shield as well, you don't lose a defense value owning a shield with them. They're 12-inch range, and obviously have poison built into them. They're a strength 2 weapon. So they're like half-range shooting, but really, really powerful at that shorter range because it's a 3+ shoot value. You have a shield for 5 points, talks for itself. You have a war spear for 5 points, Again, talks for itself. It's a spear on foot. It's a lance when you're mounted. And speaking of mounts, for 10 points, you get a war camel. So, what is a war camel? That is the important question. And there are two really, really good things about the war camel. So it's a movement 10 model, which is fantastic already. Strength of 4, defense of 4. Those will never really come up. It's got 1 wound, courage of 2. Again, probably won't really come up. But it has one really cool rule, and it's called Impaler. What it means is whenever War Camel charges into combat, it will inflict 1 strength 4 hit upon the model it has charged. Now, importantly, if you charge 2 models, it will not impact hit both models. It will only go 1 impact hit onto that model. Although, if it's a cavalry model, you will impact hit the bottom and the top. So you will do an impact hit on the horse and the rider. Now, unfortunately, there is an FAQ out there already to say when you charge a cavalry model and the Impaler hit kills the cavalry itself, kills the horse or the warg, you still count as having charged a cavalry model, unfortunately.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's unfortunate. I think it's very fortunate. In fact, I don't think it would be very fun for your cavalry model to only get dismounted but then get proned on that same turn. I mean, I think that's pretty stupid, Chris, and I think that's very fortunate that the FAQ states that.
As the person who always played against me, I get why you say that. Regardless, that is the King's package. So if you look at this model as a 75 points, probably is about the minimum you'll pay for him, which will either be a blowpipe or a shield. Realistically, I think the minimum's actually 90 points, which is a camel, shield, and war spear is kind of the minimum package you pay. Sometimes you buy the blowpipe as well. Kind of depends on points breakdown and stuff like that as well. But Aleksa, what are your thoughts on the King?
Why is the war camel only 10 points? Just literally a horse, but better.
Yeah, literally.
Why is an armored horse with +1 defense 5 points more, but killing your opponent's mount with no counterplay doesn't cost any extra points?
No, there is counterplay. You just have to call a move, right?
Okay.
Surely.
All right, buddy. It's okay. Relax. Yeah, look, the Mahud King is insane. I look at this profile and I think, wow, if this was in any other army list, you would be insane.
Yes.
Like, oh my god, like the killing, like this is a named hero in terms of power level, because there is some level of very clear power differential between named and unnamed heroes usually. Like a named hero is usually like 15 to 20 points better than an unnamed hero, and the Mahud King fits that mold. He
really does, especially with the bump up to hero valor. I think that really put the ball in the King's court, sort of thing.
Well, and the fact that he's 3 attacks as well is like insane. Like you compare him to other King profiles, like the King of Men. King of Men on foot is like 70 points.
Yes,
but he has less attacks, lower strength, same courage, but doesn't have strike. Has way worse heroics as well.
Yeah, he has march and defense. Arguably, march is really good though.
Well, yeah, march is really good.
And so is defense actually.
They're both very good. But strike is the big one you want for like a leader type hero, and that's where this model fits in.
Yeah, and I think that's what really boosts this profile from absolutely phenomenal to just absurd. Now, drawbacks. He's only 2 might. He is only 1 fate.
Only D6.
Yes, he can get popped very
quickly. Vulnerable to strength 4 troops.
Like, as soon as you lose a fight into any other hero, realistically, you're going to take a wound and lose your camel. Like, it's just going to happen, sort of thing. So he is vulnerable. He is glass cannony in the sense of, again, only defense 6. So anything strength 4, basically every hero in the game that's worth being scared of is going to be killing his camel on a 4+, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there are some big drawbacks to him. But
he's 90 points.
Yes, he's so cheap that it's like you would never not bring one in a list unless you absolutely needed march because of a meta, basically.
But you can bring both.
Exactly. So. Yeah. And with that, Aleksa, take it away with our next profile.
The Mahud Tribemaster. He's our march boy. For 50 points, you get a Man Mahud infantry hero of fortitude with a move of 6, a fight of only 4, but still strength 5, so still big damage coming in. D5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, only courage 3, another big down compared to the Mahud King. 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate. Comes with armor and a club. He gets the heroic actions of march and strength, and he has the same options as the King: a war camel for 10, blowpipe for 5, shield for 5, and spear for 5. War spear, sorry. So, what do we think? I think he's pretty solid. Obviously, the problem here really is just how good the King is.
Yes.
For the point differential. It is a 20-point differential, which is pretty significant. But +1 fight, +1 attack, +2 courage, which is very important in this.
I was going to say, the courage is probably the biggest issue.
Is like like all of those combined are way better than just 20 extra points. Essentially, is what I'm getting at.
Yes. A little rule of thumb that I like doing when I look at heroes and their impact on things like courage tests and breaking is if I snake eyes my courage check and add all of my starting will to that roll, will I still be okay? Now, the Mahud King doesn't even fit that bill of if he snake eyes, unless you're willing to commit both points of will and a point of might, you are still going to fail and flee off the table. It is actually a very, very low courage army overall, and the king, despite how amazing he is, suffers from that, and the Tribemaster more so as well. Like, I'm surprised his courage 3, not courage 4. It doesn't really
fits in line with the list because usually your captain level hero is basically a +1 on stats compared to your troops. So your troops are courage 2, your Tribemaster's courage 3.
I mean, it does make sense on that front, but
your king gets to break them all by being courage 5 because kings are usually +2 courage in your troops.
Actually, I think you might be right on that.
Yeah, most kings basically gain +1 fight, +1 courage, +1 will compared to a captain, and an extra heroic. That's the general rule. So the Mahud King is actually Mahud King and the Khandish King are the two kings that break that mold. I don't know what the Khandish King gets exactly, but he gets the +1 attack and the banner as well.
Yeah, that's huge.
So he's huge as well. These two kings gain huge ups compared to their captain equivalents.
Yeah. I wonder if that's just because of how limited the rest of the list options are.
It's because they have no named heroes.
Yeah. Up until the Gondar War.
Well, yes, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But that's not really a named hero in the same sense as like a 200-point hero.
That's very fair as well.
It's not following the normal trends of a hero.
Yeah, but Aleksa, when would you bring the normal captains? What sort of games?
If you're playing a purely pure list, I think bringing a captain is worth it, just because March is a very important thing to have access to, and he is a cheaper way to gain access to more troops. And bringing bringing a third camel might mean your model count gets very low because we have very expensive troops.
Yeah.
So bringing 2 kings and a chieftain at 750 is what I've brought for our list for today, and I think that's generally, if you're going pure and not bringing Serpent Horde, that's what I would go with.
Yeah, kind of what you need to do. And if you bring Serpent Horde, you're probably bringing your March in the Serpent Horde.
You're bringing Solodan, and Solodan brings you March, and then you cheat because he's also 16. Anyway, Solodan is pretty good.
Solodan is very good.
I think we talked about this for like 20 minutes.
Exactly. But anyway, let's jump into probably the most complex profile we'll talk about today, the Mumaks.
Now look, we talked about this for like 30 minutes in the Serpent Horde episode. We're going to give us a quick overview, not going into as much depth. If you want more depth, we talk about it and the LL in depth in the Serpent Horde video, and we'll chuck a link down below.
Yes, exactly that. So for 300 points flat, you get the Mumak Monster Warbeast Hero Fortitude profile. You get on the Mumak itself a Fight 4. 5+ shoot, which is irrelevant. Strength 9, defense 7, 3 attacks, 10 wounds, courage of 2, and a Howdah on top of it, which is defense 9 and 5 wounds basically. So the Howdah can be destroyed, which is something a lot of people forget. There is a bunch of upgrades as well, and there is a compulsory upgrade that has to happen with the Mahud Beastmaster. The Beastmaster costs 25 points, making the Mahud one a flat 300 points instead of 275. And he is a Fight 4, 3+ shoot, Strength of 5, Defense of 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, Courage of 5, which is really important, 3 might, 2 wounds, 2 fate, and 2 will as well. So he is a much more survivable hero, but he doesn't really do much else outside of that. From memory, his equipment is just a dagger, and he's not really meant to be in the fights at all. He is equipped with armor and a dagger, basically, only. So what he's there to do is help survive courage tests for the Mumak. The Mumak itself has, like I said, a few upgrades that you can do. So Gnarled Hide is the one that you see quite a lot. It makes you defense 8 instead of defense 7. You have the Foul Temperament, which you almost never see. Makes the Mumak 4 attacks instead of 3, but -1 to courage test for itself the whole game. You have Repel Lines, which is a really fun one. That one, what it does is it's the only thing that allows a model to willingly dismount from the Howdah. And the way it works is you make a jump test. On a 1, you fall and take all the fall damage from where you started in the Howdah to the bottom. but on a 2-6, and here's what's really cheeky. You get placed at the bottom in base contact with a Mumak and can still charge, which is really, really powerful, especially considering, I'll get to in just a moment, with what can go into the Howdah.
Yeah, we will have some good fun times.
Exactly. You have some rocks that you can throw. So what rocks are is if the model doesn't move when it's in the Howdah, it can throw a strength 6, range 8 shooting attack instead of the normal blowpipes, which are the range 12, strength 2. So closer range, but much, much more powerful. And 2 more options. Sigils of Defiance gives people in the Howdah magic resistance and a 6-up as if it's a Fury save. And you have Tusk Weapons, which means you impale, or you do 4 impact hits instead of 3. A lot of rules. Special rules for the Mumak. He has Terror, big surprise. He can also trample things, which is what we talked about with the Tusk Weapons. So when you hit something, when you move into any model, friend or foe, you will deal impact hits to them. Those impact hits are 4 strength 9 hits on the rider and on the mount. If you hit a chariot, you're going to do those impact hits onto every single part of the chariot, things like that. If it's Dernhelm, you're going to do it onto the Hobbit, what's her name?
Dernhelm and
the horse itself. Yeah. And you're going to do it to all parts of it. Now there's a really cool special rule as well with all Mumaks. It's called in Awesome Presence. What it means is friendly Haradrim and Mahud models count the Mumak similarly to a banner. Now the important thing about this is it doesn't actually overlap. It doesn't overlap with a banner, and you can actually, if you have a banner and a Mumak, reroll 2 dice per fight, which is just insane. Like, it's really powerful.
Your 2 attack half troll can reroll 2 dice.
Literally,
that's all I'm saying.
Like, a 2 dice half troll with a spear sport gets 5 dice per fight. Like, that's crazy considering that how powerful the half trolls can be as well. So, there's a big profile here in front of us. I would say that because of the way the Mahud Beastmaster works... Oh, there's one other important thing. The Howdah can only have Mahud Warriors and half trolls in its Howdah, which has a capacity of 12 models in it as well. So you are somewhat limited in what can go into the Howdah and that sort of stuff. But I think if you're bringing a Mumak, these are some of the most amazingly fun models you'll play, and having access to some of these upgrades is really fun. Aleksa, what sort of things would you be looking at if you were going to pay for a Mumak?
Well, if you're not, the Mahud Beastmaster is probably the initial basic sort of auto-include if you're not bringing the War Leader himself. Then you're probably looking at, Sigils of Defiance are very good. Tusk Weapons, I think, are probably an auto-include. You just want to roll every time. Like, the power of the Mumak is it kills everything it touches, and you need to have the highest consistency possible, because if it doesn't kill with that, that's when it becomes vulnerable.
Yes.
It is very powerful, but being stuck on fight 4 means that there are some... Like, it means if you get stuck in a bad spot and you just lose some move-offs, the Mumak can get swarmed, and it can die. Or it can, fail its courage check and run you over.
Yes. And if you're stuck in place fighting elves, like, you're just not even winning fights either.
Yeah, there's no way you're winning when you're stuck on fight 4. There is no way you're winning.
Yes.
So you just need to make sure your tasks clear everything when they hit.
I think for me, the first upgrade I'd be looking at almost every single game, if we're talking about a Far Harad Mumak, which has to bring the Mahud Beastmaster, would be the Sigils of Defiance, would be the one that I'd look at first almost every single time, unless I have a particular plan in mind. For example, Repel Lines can be really fun if you're gonna play the Drop Bear style list,
which we will get into.
Yes, yes, we actually have a list later that we have prepared for that sort of stuff, which is, I think, really fun. I agree with you, definitely Tusk Weapons is the other big one. The only other one that I'd say is a really nice one to have is Gnarled Hide as well. Going up to Defense 8 is a big breakpoint over Defense 7.
Yes, it makes all those Strength 3 troops very sad.
Yes. And it means that, those rare Strength 5 things out there as well are having a really bad day. Suddenly dwarves can't piercing strike to kill you on 5s, things like that. Like, there was a lot of things that Defense 8 really helps against.
My Charging Sons of Wolf got this. Defense 6. You're dead. You're gone.
That's fair.
And let's get into the other sort of upgrade for the Mumak. Not really on the profile, but the Mumak War Leader, who is a Man Mahud infantry hero of legend for 400 points. You get to be a Fight 5, Strength 5, D5, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, Courage 6. Crazy. 3 might, 2 will, 1 fate. So, very high courage, isn't going to fail those stampede checks. Has the will, the fate, the might, and the wounds to just not die. He has a long-bladed spear that is either a spear or a two-handed sword. Not that he's ever going to get to use this really cool weapon that they gave him. Because he is on the Royal War Mumak. He rides upon it to battle. This is a War Mumak of Far Harad with gnarled hide, sigils of defiance, and tusk weapons. So you've already got the upgrades built into the profile of it. Additionally, the Royal Mumak is Fight 5 rather than 4. Big deal. We just talked about how bad it is to fight elves because you're never going to win fights. Well, not half the time. 33% of the time, you win the draw.
Yes.
But it also means all those Fight 4 armies, which can be quite common, now are just very sad.
And now they have to put a hero into you, and the faster you can crush through that hero, the more empowered the Mumaks are going to get. Yeah.
Additionally, the Mumak War Leader may include Harad Warriors in the Howdah as if they were from the Far Harad army list and not lose its army bonus.
Yes.
It's neat.
I find it really, really nice to have that rule. Yeah.
Furthermore, it gains the Imposing Presence rule. While mounted upon his Royal War Mumak, the first time each turn that an enemy model is declaring a heroic move within 12 of the Mumak War Leader, roll a d6. On a 4+, the heroic move is immediately cancelled and any might points spent declaring it are lost. While the Mumak War Leader is atop his War Leader, measure the range of this special rule from the Mumak's base. Can't even get away. It's huge.
It's fantastic. Yes, it's a 12-inch bubble of half the time. If you want to move off with me,
it's 2 might.
You have to spend 2 might, and it has to be 2 different heroes that spend it because the move gets cancelled. It's not like the move gets like. I love this rule. It's great. I love it.
And finally, High King of the Mahud. The range of the War Leader's standfast is 12 rather than 6. Additionally, models from the Mumak War Leader's warband may be deployed within 12 rather than 6, even outside the Howdah if they wish. While the War Leader is atop his Royal Mumak, measure the range of this rule from the Mumak's base.
It is fantastic. Yes.
Very nice. It means you can make a really long line of Cav with him and do lots of different fun, funky things.
It also means that you can just bring Cav in his warband instead of being stuck bringing a second model, stuff like that.
So you don't have to drop them in the Howdah.
Exactly. It's just really nice to have that. And same with like having 4 Mahud Warriors with blowpipes just like in the list in his warband. You can choose, do I want them on foot? Do I want them in the Howdah? What do I want to do with them? Is it an objective game where I need them spread out? Is it Lords of Battle so they stand in the Howdah and go prone in turn 1? Like, what do I do with it? I can change and adapt to almost every mission type with a rule like that.
It's a really nice rule, yeah.
It is a really nice rule.
So, War Leader, very good. Bring him in the LL.
Yes, okay.
Anything else?
Games Workshop, make this profile 140 points, and you don't have to bring him on the wall, on the Mumak. Yes, put him on a camel, please.
I agree. This profile would be so sick.
Yes. Put him on a 2-wound camel that looks like an elk.
Stop. I've had enough. All right, listen, Chris, can you talk about the Mahud Warrior, our next profile?
Yes, so the Mahud Warrior is your baseline infantry warrior that this whole list revolves around, basically. They are a 8-point Man Mahud infantry warrior. They're only movement 6, as all troops typically are. Their fight is 3, and their shoot value is 3 as well. Now, their strength of 4, that's actually really good. Their defense of 5, not amazing, but it's better than Harad, so, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage of 2, so now we're really starting to see the low courage as a common thing across the army. Their base war gear, though, and this is what I really like, it's armor, a club, and a shield. So the shields are built in, which is nice. They get 3 upgrades they can bring, so a banner for 25 points, a blowpipe with poison darts for 1 point, and a spear for 1 point as well. So you can have these guys stuck at 9 points with one of those 2 upgrades, either the spear or the blowpipe, or you can double down and do both of them for 10 points. Yes, they're a little bit pricey, but they're not the most expensive troop out there. You're looking at the same price as an elf with a shield, which I guess makes them feel a bit bad, but you do get shooting built into that profile on that as well.
They line up pretty closely to what are they called? Moran Orcs.
They do actually a little bit, yeah. Where Moran Orc with a spear and shield is, what would it be?
10
9 points
as well, right?
9 points.
No, they 7 base, same as a Gondorian?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they cost 1 point more, come with the shield base, come with a 3+ shoot and access to shooting, but are more expensive.
Yeah, and yeah. I think that's probably a good trade-off, relatively.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yes. And
the low courage is traded off thanks to the feel as well. Yes.
Yeah. So I think they work really well on the list. I think having access to, like we said earlier, a blowpipe that doesn't have to adhere to a bow count limit is what kind of makes these guys scary in high numbers. I think with Mahud Warriors in a pure list, you either really want to min-max out those blowpipes, or you want to have a minimal amount of Mahud Warriors and only have a couple of blowpipes and just have them as spear supports for a majority half-troll list. So there's kind of two big things that they fit into in terms of how the list functions. And whilst I'd love them to be a little bit cheaper, like I was saying to Aleksa earlier, I'd love for the shield to not be built into the profile and be a 1 point
so you
upgrade.
can make your spearmen cheaper and not bring shields on them.
Stuff like that. Like, that would be a really nice little quality of life change that could help out with them. But again, it's just a semantics point of view, I think, here.
It doesn't make that big a deal. You could maybe get one extra model in the list at 750, maybe.
Exactly.
Like, it's not going to change the way the game is played.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Let's move into our Mahud Raiders. Aleksa, take it
for
away.
17 points, you get a Mahud Raider, the man Mahud Cavalry Warrior. Move 6, fight 3, strength 4, D5, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 2. So basically just the same profile as before, but on a camel. They come with armor, club, shield, and war camel. They can bring a banner, blowpipe with poison darts, and the war spear. What is very good, Chris? War spears on strength 4.
Yes.
Isn't that right? And also, obviously, they also have the same rules we talked about with the king, with the impaling charge, with the strength 4 impact hits.
Yes.
Huge damage output on these guys. Huge. The low fight is their big downside. You know, when you're charging cab, you're kind of relying on them to at least win the turn they're charging.
Yes.
Against a lot of lists, that's gonna feel a little rough with these guys. But the impact hits make up for it. Because they are very pricey. 18 points with the war spear. That's pushing, close to like elf cav.
Literally, yes. And so you really have to know what you want out of your cavalry models. You can't just kind of like tiptoe them around the side of a fight and just slap them into a combat here and there. You have to actually think about where you're placing them relative to where your list is going to be, especially knowing that you're a low might point army as well. Like, you need to get the charges off, not just for the charge bonuses, but impact hits. And I think here's why I want to talk just a little bit about the mental game, I guess, of the impaling hits.
The mental game. The mental game.
Your opponent, until it happens to them, really struggles to conceptualize what 1 strength 4 hit every time this model touches enemy models actually means. I've played a couple of games now, one even against Aleksa, where 1 camel charges and 5 models die before I stop moving.
I think you killed like 7 wildmen. Like, I screened 7 guys to stop your heroic combat happening, and he just killed 7 guys.
And it's just like, when that happens, your opponent just doesn't know what to do.
There is nothing to do.
Literally.
What am I supposed to do?
And now, conversely, I've had the opposite thing happen to me before, where my Camel King charged an enemy model, and he did like a 9.5 inch move to get to that model, and didn't have enough move to kill to reach anything else. Impact hitted that model, thus couldn't be in combat.
So
and my opponent
combat.
No, even worse than that. My opponent, who was playing Angmar, laughed at me because I could no longer charge him. And the rest of my army just cheerleaded for a turn.
That's a disaster.
And so, like, the impact hits, it's really swingy. Like, a strength 4 hit, like, it's probably...
Most things are 5s.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably going to be a 5+ to go through whatever you're touching.
Do you know where they shine, though? What? Horses.
Yes, I was about to bring that up. There is one really powerful thing that these models do, which is D-Horse Defense 4. Like, it's
just D-Horse heroes.
Armored horses is the only caveat to that.
Yeah, armored horses, but it's still 5s, and it's still getting to D-Horse a hero with, just for free.
Yes. And, like, just making your opponent panic about the, like... My non-horse lord 200-point hero might just randomly drop their horse because a 18-point Mahud Raider with a war spear just charged into him. Yeah. Like, that is what is crazy, right? It's how much power these models can actually manipulate a game with because of those impaling hits. And so, I think when we look at the profile, you go, okay, a Mahud Raider is 8 points. This profile is identical, but paid 9 points for a camel. Wow, that seems really expensive, doesn't it, compared to horse upgrades? But then you kind of have to think, how many points is that impaling charge actually going to work itself out? over the course of the game.
If it just gets one kill, you're basically paying less than a horse for your
and I think that's the thing you need to look at it like, right? If you're probably going to charge with 4 camels in one turn, one of them's going to die on the turn it charges, and one of them's going to get an impact hit off sort of thing, and that happens twice. That's probably paid off most of your camel prices. Yeah. And you dehorse something else throughout the course of the game.
You paid it all off.
And if you get lucky and get like 2 or 3 kills in one charge, then oh my gosh. Not only did you just get like probably close to 25 to 30 points of kills for nothing.
Tilted out of their mind.
Your opponent's been tilted. The flank that they thought was really strong suddenly is 3 models down. That means you're now trapping them for free, getting extra dice in other fights, and letting things like half trolls suddenly do work on other parts of the map where you no longer need them anymore. And I think the final thing we'll talk about with the camels, and this goes for the heroes as well, make sure they always move first. You need to know where your camels finish their impact hits so you can support them properly. The worst thing you'll ever do is charge model into combat and then throw your camel in afterwards and impact hit that thing out of combat, and the model that you've already moved is now stuck for that turn. You want to always make sure you're lining up those combats after all your camels stand still.
Also, you can bring blowpipes and just kite people.
That is also
moving
true.
on to not kiting people at all, Chris. Take it away with our Urukai Scout. Sorry, half troll.
Yeah, there we go. Yes. This is a man, Mahud Infantry Warrior for 23 points. Now, I know what you're saying, Chris, it's 23 points for one model. That's not even
bargain. It's a bargain.
No, that's 23. Chris, that's so expensive. That's so dumb. Why would you ever do that? Well, let me tell you all about the half troll. It's a movement 6, fight 5. So this model is already fight 5. That's the same level as Theoden. That's the same level as most Rohan heroes. That's most heroes in the game. Literally, this model is the same fight value as heroes, or a baseline elf, and then they're strength 5 for no reason, so now they're higher strength than most models in the game. And then they're defense 6, they count as being highest defense model in your entire list. They're the same defense value as most of your heroes. Like, that's crazy. And then they have 2 attacks. And you're like, wow, Chris, this couldn't get any better. And then you say, wait, they're 2 wounds. So the random bow shot that goes through onto them needs a second bow shot to actually do anything.
It gets even better. Their courage. 2.
No, don't worry about the courage.
2 wounds, 2 attacks, 2 courage. Brilliant. The trifecta.
The trifecta of 2s, The next edition will be the trifecta of 3s, don't worry.
Oh, God.
Their equipment is armor and a club. Club seems to be the signature disappointment of Far Harad. Now, importantly, they can buy a 2-handed club. Ooh, yes.
So your model always costs 23 points.
Yes,
What are their special rules?
They have one special rule, which is the other thing that tilts me out of my mind every time I look at this profile, because they have terror.
So Urukai Scout Captain with terror for 23 points.
Yeah, like literally, it's an Urukai Scout Captain without the Might Will Fate not leading a warband. And in fact, it's literally like, treat them like independent heroes because you're attaching heroes into your Camel King's warbands. Like,
basically what it is. Yeah.
Oh, I hate it. It's so insane how powerful these models can be when played well, I think is the important thing. And I think, actually, let's jump to you, Aleksa. How do you think these models fit into this list?
They're a battering ram. They go somewhere and they make a big hole.
Do you think that this is the type of model that you want to goon up in like 6 or 7 models in one big line? Do you want to spread them out?
Spread them slightly so that so let's talk about their biggest weakness, because that sort of informs how you use them. They're very vulnerable to heroes, obviously, because they're very expensive, and what do heroes do? They usually overkill stuff, but when it's got 2 wounds, they're not really overkilling.
Yes.
So especially like Fight 6 Lance heroes, stuff like that, is the big counter.
Yes.
And so to avoid that, assuming that that's in your opponent's list, you actually want to spread them with usually one other model between them, like each individually. So you have like a half troll, another model, a half troll, another model. And that way you're not losing, 46 points per combat.
Yes, especially if your opponent calls to a combat.
Yes, so that could be like if Thorin on a goat, calls his free hero combat and kills 4 half trolls in a turn. That's rough.
That's probably the game.
That's an 80-point swing, buddy. Calm down. So you have to they're insanely powerful, but they're also, and if you use them correctly, they'll pay their points back easily. They're so hard to stop if there isn't a hero hitting them.
Yes. I think the best way to look at this model is take the first word out of their name and just look at the word troll. fixed value, really high impact model that can do a lot, but is also really vulnerable if they're in a bad spot and not supported well. That is how you look at this model, but compound the fact that this is a 25 mil base. When I first started playing the game and I saw the half troll profile, I thought, okay, you know, this model feels like it should be a little bit cheaper than what it is, because I didn't really understand how this profile worked. And I thought at the time it was on a bigger base, because I was like, half troll, surely that just means this model is on a 40 mil base, and it just looks crowded on that base. Kind of like how you see some trolls from Moria looking, where certain poses just looks like they're falling off the base, and they feel like they maybe should have been on a 50, but 50s didn't exist at the time. And so it's that weird thing, right? Half trolls feel like that to me. Well, I just assumed they were on a 40. Then I realized they were on 25s. And then I realized that they were 2 wounds with terror. And I was like, holy heck, how is this model not 30 points? And so I started playing them, and then...
No, sorry, I told you to stop playing.
That is true. You did tell me to try them. And I realized how absolutely terrifying they were when you play them correctly. And I think this is a really good point, because... when Aleksa and I first started playing, with me playing the half trolls, I lost a lot of games in a row with them.
Just ran by and thrown into killed 8 of them in a turn, and I was like, all right, cool, game's over.
And I was like, I don't know what to do against them. And that's where we kind of realized together that separating out the half trolls with either another model or making sure that a cab charging model can't hit 2 of them in one turn and stuff like that actually becomes important. And how do you counter that? What sort of models do you need to stop that? How do you do things against people just shutting down the half trolls?
Yeah.
And I think that is the kind of the stuff that takes a bit of time to learn, but once you get it, you'll never unlearn it, sort of thing. So yeah, I think half trolls are crazy. If they were 26 points, I think I'd still pay for them. Like, they're just insanely good value for what you get.
Yeah, I agree. This model's absurd.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay, with that, that's all the profiles covered. We're going to jump to a quick break, and then we'll be back with the allies and the lists.
Alrighty, and welcome back. Let's jump straight into our allies. We only have one green ally, and that is the Serpent Horde. Aleksa, what is so good about the Serpent Horde as an ally?
Saladin. Good. Bring Saladin.
Yes. So for those who don't know, Saladin is 115 points for
a 6-inch banner.
A mounted 6-inch banner, who is also just a casual hero of legend.
And also brings March, and also has Strike, and also has 3 attacks, and also, Fight 5, and just, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's pretty good.
He brings a lot to your list. And the other big thing that he brings into your list is 7-point spear supports.
Yes.
So if you're looking at a Far Harad list that wants to bring cheaper spears and the 9 points of the Mahud Warriors, and you don't want to do the overkill of 2 strength 5 attacks with the half troll and then a strength 4 on top of that, you can pay 2 less points for a strength 3 spear with poison. It's just fantastic.
It also gives you access to fight 4 troops that aren't extremely expensive. It means you can have a much wider line of high fight.
Yes. There's just a lot of good things about allying them together, basically. And I think they cover each other's weaknesses really, really well.
And you also get to bring your unnamed hero who's pointed like a named hero while also bringing named heroes.
Yes. Who is pointed like a named hero. Yeah. It is fantastic, yes. Now, they don't have any other green allies, but they have a few armies that are yellow. One of the big ones is Mordor.
And Mordor's just big. It's exactly. A big list.
I think, like we have on the slide, meta dependent. I think going and breaking your army bonus can be okay. Currently, for example, with the amount of legendary legions with Terror and Harbinger, it's probably not the right choice for most metas. But I think if you're playing in a meta that's predominantly like Gondor and Rohan and armies like that aren't really exploiting terror lines or Harbinger stacking or any of those sort of mechanics, I think going yellow for someone like Mordor is a really good option. And the reason I say that is because you can bring an unnamed ring wraith for as low as 55 points. And you can bring up to 15 troops with it, and those 15 troops can be 6 point spear supports with orcs, all the way through to then empowering you to bring winged Nazgul, to bringing Mordor troll chieftains, to bringing any of your host of 1.5 million phenomenal named characters. Like, I've seen a list with Shelob in it that brought the Mats of Sauron, for example. Stuff like that, where you just bring really, really nice centerpieces of one list and combo it with the punching power that Mahud has. And I think suddenly your list can really change how it plays from being like a front line that wants to exploit the half trolls to using the half trolls almost like the distraction piece for a model like Shelob. So I think Mordor is the most obvious example of a yellow ally that works well because of how many things you can do with the list. But I think unless you're playing in a meta without a lot of terror, it's probably not wise to break your army bonus.
I think you should just keep your army bonus. Not only is it huge for terror, it's also huge when you break. It makes you immune to the move off curse of having to move off to get a stand fast. Because if someone wins the move off, and you don't have your army bonus, they tie up your king and all your half trolls flee. That's a big loss, and you just sort of don't want to have to roll those courage checks. Let's be honest.
Yes, that is one of the big
because you could fail 7 of them in a row and lose all your half trolls. Wouldn't that be crazy, Chris?
Yes.
Can you imagine if someone did that in a doubles game with you? Wouldn't that be really unfortunate?
Yeah, and the problem with half trolls is that's not actually that unlikely to lose half your list in a one turn.
You should lose probably, if you have 7 or 8, you should probably lose more than half. You probably lose 4 to 5.
Yeah.
On courage 2 rolls.
And that's what makes this list terrifying. As soon if you have 30 models in your list and your opponent shoots off a lot of your backline and gets 2 or 3 half trolls down, suddenly the rest of your half trolls are looking at the break and going, "Oh, please, Mr. Mahud King,
be in combat, please.
Sir, please." And if you can't do that, then you're gonna lose most of them.
Yeah.
And I think that is such an important thing. And like I said at the start of this as well, it's giving your opponent the choice. Do you charge the enemy king and tie him up and possibly let him combat into something important and give Fearless out to all the half trolls and Mahud Warriors? Or do you leave him out there and hope a Courage 5 hero Snake Eyes is the Courage test? It's a genuinely hard debate. Now, obviously, most of the time people will tie up the hero where they can, but it is still a very tough decision to make. So...
yeah, now onto the first list. We've got Blown Away. So this is a pure Mahud list. We've got a Mahud King on camel with War Spear and Shield, bringing 2 half trolls, 2 camel riders with War Spear and blowpipes, 3 Mahud Warriors with blowpipes, and 7 Mahud Warriors with blowpipes and spears, and finally 1 Mahud Warrior with banner and spear and blowpipe. Then basically the same thing again, except with 2 more blowpipe guys with 2 half trolls, 2 camels, and 7 warriors with spears. And then finally a Mahud Tribemaster on camel with War Spear and Shield, with 2 half trolls, 1 Mahud Warrior with blowpipe, 6 Mahud Warriors with blowpipes and spears, bringing us only 6 might, but 40 mortals, 30 blowpipes, and 750 points. 30 blowpipes. Yes. How does that make you feel?
I think this is a really cool list. So I gave Aleksa the pure list for us. Let's see how you go with it. And I think this is such a cool way of writing this list. You only have 6 half trolls, and you only have 4 camels, but you have so many blowpipes that as soon as you close the gap with your opponent, oh my gosh, they're gonna lose their mind. At the amount of damage that comes out. 3s to hit with poison on all of your blowpipes.
That's better than almost any shooting army.
Yes.
It's only elves or Corsair crossbows are gonna be able to beat that.
Yes. Now, defense 6 is gonna give you a few nightmares. No, or even defense 5.
No, sorry, defense 7 is where the nightmares are.
Because it's 6/4s. Actually,
defense 7 is because defense 6 will give nightmares to everything that isn't crossbows. So that's fine. You're not worried about that.
That is true.
Defense 7 is where the real issues start.
Yeah, and I think that's the one type of list that you might be a little bit upset fighting. But in saying that as well, half trolls still kill on 5s into that.
Yeah, if you're fighting defense 7, they paid a lot of points to get killed by half trolls.
Exactly.
Basically.
So there's a lot of things going well for this list, and I think double kings is probably the right way to do it. Like we mentioned earlier, 2 kings, 1
they'll also kill that D7 easy.
Yes, because they munch dwarves like it's no one's business. It is crazy. Yes. And so I think the list is really well balanced because it kind of almost negates its own weaknesses in each warband. And even if you get split up on an awkward deployment or maelstrom and things like that, you still have enough redundancy in most of your list to kind of make it work. Obviously, the Tribemaster wants to kind of stick next to the king with the banner, but other than that, you can probably make do with pretty separated warbands.
Yeah, you can just do and you can also mess around with the model counts as well. I went for a small warband on the Tribemaster. Means you can drop him without revealing too much, and then just have him run over to the main army.
Yeah,
things like that. Just gives you flexibility on your first drop.
Yes,
before dropping the big warbands. But if you wanted to, if you're worried about Maelstrom, you could totally just even out the warbands more, so it's like 12, 12, 12 or whatever.
Yeah, like if you really wanted to reveal as little as you could do all 4 of your normal camels and 1 warrior with a blowpipe in that Tribemaster's warband.
That could be a way of doing it. Yeah.
And leave your blowpipe in a building somewhere in an objective,
and then just run them to your army. Yeah,
and then run your camels into the list. Yeah. Like there's a few ways you can kind of mess around.
This works better for things like the alternate deployment stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Or like Maelstrom as well, because that could suffer in Maelstrom.
Yes,
depending on what happens.
And I think depending if Maelstrom is in the meta that you're playing in,
it depends on how you set up your warbands. But this is just the general list.
Exactly that. Yeah. Alrighty, let's jump into our second list.
Alright, this is the tactical insertion, Chris.
Yes.
How are we doing this?
So this is the Grand Army of the South Legendary Legion, where we're taking Saladin on an armored horse, and he's leading 11 Harad Raiders with War Spear and Bow. So a lot of bows already in this half of the list. And then you get the Mumak of Far Harad with rappel lines. Now, there's a cheeky little gimmick here, because you have 6 Mahud Warriors with blowpipes, and you also got 5 half trolls in the Howdah. So your half trolls, every time something scary charges your fight 4 Mumak, you just drop a fight 5 half troll into the fight, and you go, don't even need to strike, kiddo, what are you gonna do now? And I love it. Like, you can, like, tap out a fight 6 hero. You can get a hero stuck on the half troll instead of the Mumak. You can do so many cool things by having the rappel lines, because you can charge as part of that move. That when your Mumak does get tied up, suddenly you're not even that stressed about it. And 5 half trolls around your Mumak, if you choose to drop all of them early, is legitimately, like, that is a lot to try and clean up, especially with a Mumak that has a banner effect on your army. Even if Saladin is on the other side of the board, you still have 3 dice half trolls fighting into whatever you choose to drop down onto. It is scary and it works, and I love it.
Yeah, look, it's pretty good. Just don't run your own half troll, so that's very expensive.
Yes, that is the one problem with the list, I think. Now, the other thing as well, you do have a total of, 17 ranged weapons in this list, with 6 blowpipes and 11 bows, because you have 50% bow limit in the Legendary Legion, that is sharing model count with the Far Harad models.
Pretty good.
It's really cool, and it's really fun to play. You kind of play like a kiting list until you get the Mumak into combat in the right position, and then you play like a dive all-in killing list with your War Spears.
And your Mumak has Harbinger of Evil.
Yes, that's also true.
Which is really good with the half trolls.
Yes. Yes, and it's like, it's just that little extra thing on top, right? You lose poison on some of your weapons, but you keep your courage buff, and you keep a lot of really powerful tools like the bow count stuff in your list. So I think it's a really strong list.
Alright, and to Troll Town. So, Chris, this is a list we both know too much about.
Yes.
Saladin on armored horse, 6 warriors with spear/bow, 2 warriors with spears, and 4 watchers of Kana with blades. Raza with 6 warriors with spear and bow, 1 warrior with spear, 4 watchers of Kana with blades, and a serpent rider. And finally, the Mahud King on camel with war spear and shield, 10 half trolls, and 2 camel riders with blowpipes and shields. 8 might, 39 models, 12 bows, and 750 points of pain.
Yes, so this is the exact list that I won HobbitCon with. And the list, I think, has a lot of really clever, cheeky little things in it. I think the first and most important thing to look at is the choice of heroes. Saladin providing your banner effect across your lines, the Mahud King providing your fearless, and Raza acting as that I could be fight 6 when fighting you, I could be fight 4, who knows, let's charge me and find out. That kind of mini game going on. In every single game I played in that event, Raza and the Mahud King in the same combat, calling a combat together, has just been like mind-blowingly terrifying for my opponent to try and deal with, I think. And having that many half trolls in your list as well, supported by Watchers of Kana, which is another source of 2 dice models, means that you suddenly have 18 models in your army which aren't heroes with 2 dice. And having all of them working together, and you can do the like half troll watcher, half troll watcher, half troll watcher, staggering out like that as well, and be fine with it because you do a half troll on either end and it works. And like, there's just so many clever little things happening with this list that I think it's very hard to write lists that are going to inherently counter this list unless you know exactly what's happening in a tournament sort of setting. So I think it's a really fun list. I think anyone who hasn't tried the allies, the combined allies together, without jumping a Legendary Legion into the mix, this is probably the easiest type of list to play. Because it is very front to back. You just put all your multi-dice models towards the front of your list, and everything with a spear kind of sits on the side, and your cav sit on the flanks.
And if they have no bows and you're playing to the death, just shoot them.
Yes.
You have 12 bows, that's still pretty good.
Yes, 12 bows with 40 models is crazy. Like, that's really good to have that many bows. Even if they're only 4 plus
it's mostly the
strength
fact that it's 10... Well, there's 10 half trolls, and you still have 12 bows.
Yes, that's the other thing.
That's the actual thing, right?
Because if this was a pure Harad list, you could probably get like 25 bows. But like the amount of power you get out of 12 bows is the same as you would out of 8 or 16 bows. It's going to either be enough to force your opponent to move towards you,
or they're playing elves.
Yes.
Or like Corsairs.
Or they have to...
They have shooting supremacy, in which case you just run at them.
And probably the scariest thing in the game is having to move into an army that's going to beat you in combat. If I have to willingly walk with a Gondor army without the white flag of Boromir that's stuck at their higher fight 4 on their baseline troops because I didn't bring enough rangers or a few of them got picked off early, and I have to walk into the half trolls that found a nice little 5.5 inch long gap between 2 buildings, and I have to just walk into 5 half trolls as spear supports and a banner sitting behind it. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to deal with it? Because I can't stand there and keep getting shot. And, like, there's probably enough half trolls on either flank to stop just walking around and coming around from the backside. Like, there's so many issues with just 10 half trolls being placed down in front of you with the support of those watchers. And the watchers are there to be your traps. They're there to kind of act almost like how Cav would work or Move 8-style troop would work, where they're there to wrap around the sides and kind of force your opponent to dive from the outsides in and collapse in on themselves, sort of thing. Like, the amount of dice you throw at this army is just crazy, and I love it.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Needs more Sons of Earl.
Needs more Sons of Earl. Yeah, fair enough.
Come on, what's your strength 6? I mean, like, you got strength 5. Surely you need some strength 6.
Alright, what if I pay for 2-handed weapons and then another pay again for axes? You know? So I pay 25 points per my half trolls.
It's not bad.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's worth it.
Surely you piercing strike 2-hand every single fight, just some principle. You've paid the 2 points per model, you need to get your points back, right? Even if it doesn't help going up to strength 6, surely you do it every single time.
The worst part is it'd probably work.
Yeah.
Worst part.
Well, the amount of dice you have in the list, it would.
Roll a 6 on the spear and you win anyway. Yeah. 5-5.
I love it.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Let's jump into our final thoughts, hey. So, Aleksa, what are your thoughts about this list as a whole?
I think it's a really cool list. It's a very unique list, I'd say. I mean, no other list has 23-point hero troops, really.
Yeah.
You know, the closest you get is my joke of Sons of Earl with their 2 attacks next to Earl. Like, they are hero level damage output, but they're missing the 2 wounds and the, other stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, half trolls really are just like a unique model in that regard. Can you think of anything similar, really?
Not
ogres are like probably kind of close, but they're on monster bases.
Yes.
But they're like that sort of like, half the points of the equivalent, half the stats kind of deal.
I think the problem that makes the half troll so strange is you look at the game and there's a lot of like Berserkers, Gundabad or Isengard, which are 2 attacks, high strength models, but none of them are terror causing with 2 wounds. And I think even if they have other shenanigans going on, like a Fury save all the time, or movement 8 and things like that, I don't think anything really comes close to being 2 wounds and terror.
Well, yeah, it's a hero model.
Yes.
It really is, like in terms of stat line. It's just a hero model.
Yes.
And 5/5 too. Like Berserkers, none of those Berserker models, there are no other 5/5 2-attack models other than like 25-point elves.
Yes. And it's like, it's very difficult to kind of come into a list like this as the opponent, especially if you're another evil player, because your courage is going to be so dang low.
And your fight value as well.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have those big fight 6 heroes because evil doesn't have fight 6 heroes.
Exactly, right? You're either playing Azog or you're going to be stuck on fight 5 or 4
Amdo can do it.
Amdo can do it. Amdo is a really good answer for that, actually. And especially the new Eastling stuff is good. I assume it's going to be some form of Dragon Emperor or something like that that's on the Palanquin.
I'm excited to see.
I was kind of hoping it'd be like Sharky and like, get pranked, COVID 2023, let's do it, right? Yeah, something like that.
Right, I'm not ready for that. I can't deal with it.
Like, I think they're a good answer. I think Mordor has some answers in the way that their list can work as well. But outside of
rates
things
are pretty
like
good.
that, like rates are
Magic
great
is really
answer.
good against this list. I can confirm that.
But it's
Saruman
then the
was pretty
question
good.
of like, are you spending all of your resources shutting down half trolls or shutting down the heroes empowering the half trolls?
It depends on your magic, really, right?
That also is true, but it's just another layer of those hard questions to answer, right? Because I think, for example, a model like Saruman, right? If you can use Saruman well, your ability to win games goes from like 50% to like 70%, just on principle of how flexible he is. But if you make one mistake with his magic in one key turn, like suddenly your Isengard list is just getting picked apart.
There's 200 points and he can't even fight.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And so suddenly there's a lot of hard decisions you have to make as the Isengard player as to where his magic goes compared to the crossbows go, compared to how the pikes fight, compared to do you put berserkers into the half troll, even though it's just bad to try it, but that's your best bet of taking one down. And it's like there are so many things that kind of happen, and the Mahud player kind of just goes, I've walked forward,
Troll dunk.
Yeah, what are you going to do about it? I've moved 6 inches forward again. It's been the same the last 4 turns, and all you've done is run away. Come on, you're in the corner now. What are you going to do about it?
I fought you and I won.
Yeah. It's like, it's such a feels bad when this army gets to play the way it wants to. But if you lose your hero early, you're in for a really bad game. Don't get Gullivad, don't get bowled, don't get slapped by some random transfix with a Kamul flying from downtown. You need to keep your heroes from Mahud alive. If the Far Harad heroes die, you go down with
Especially,
the
that's something to consider in that allied list, is if you only got one Mahud hero. So if he goes down, you're very sad if you're playing against Terra. You're very sad.
There was one game where I willingly threw away Saladin, my army leader, and gave up the 3 VPs for his death because I knew the Camel King dying would be exponentially worse for the rest of my list than having Saladin die. And so for me, it was one of those weird ones where it's like, I just threw away a 6-inch banner and my army leader for the kill points as well. But what I've got in return is the remaining 8 half trolls in my list now get to charge the terror line for free and aren't running away the next turn because I was getting close to breaking as well. And suddenly, I went from being on the back foot to going from my opponent being above 50% to quartering and the game ending that turn anyway. And I was like, cool, we're fine.
And I think that's all.
Yeah.
Say, Chris?
I don't think so. Other than half trolls are crazy and powerful, and you should definitely
You should like and subscribe to not have to play against them ever.
I was going to say, you never want to actually play them. Half trolls, it's not a real army. Yeah. You don't want to play them.
Just like Lothlorien, I think we should all stay away from them.
They don't exist.
Half trolls are really wet noodly. That's
exactly. Yeah. In fact, everyone should play the Necromancers and the Vanquishers and the Black Riders, Legion. Not because I'm playing Lothlorien right now. I just think they're really fun, balanced, friendly for everyone.
I think I need to stop this. All right, listen. I'm cutting it off now. Okay. We'll see you guys. I don't know. Maybe next week. Maybe 2 weeks. I don't know. We'll see. See where COVID takes us. Have a good one.
Bye. Awesome.